On Friday, I entered into a cash-secured put on Cigna. I want to go over it with you today. Ended up closing it today, just 4 days later, and ended up with 156% annualized return on the trade. Main reason the annualized return is so high is because I was only in it for 4 days. The overall return wasn't that good. But when I entered this trade, I knew a couple of things. One is Cigna had earnings on 8/4. I entered into the cash secured put by selling a 8/5 242.50 option. I really didn't want to still have that option when earnings was released, so I knew I was going to have to close this trade early at some point to keep from carrying an undefined risk trade through earnings, which I don't like to do. I thought the trade might work because I entered it right here on 722, and you can see the price of Cigna was coming down into this range where it was a buy opportunity bouncing off of this level here, which is the 50 simple moving average. It was below the Bollinger band right here, so I'm hoping I might get a pop back up. And here you can see it, part of this wave that was coming through here. So it was all in this wave range, which is typically on a upward trending stock, a good time to try to get into it on these pullbacks. RSI on the short term was a little high, but I decided to go with it anyway, or it was sloping up coming in through here. The MACD actually did not support the trade that much on the daily, but I found it using a scan on the weekly where the MACD had crossed over just right here, and that's how I found the trade coming over. Now, this is not the typical way that I trade a MACD crossover. I took a little bit of a chance on this trade. Typically, if I'm doing a MACD trade, I would like to see it trading above the 200, and I'd like to see the MACD below the zero line and crossing back above, these two crossing back above each other. That would typically be a buy order or buy entry for me or buy signal. So I took a little bit of a chance there, but with the run into earnings, I felt relatively confident that we might be heading up, and I liked the place where I was able to get into the trade. You take a look at the options. I only went 14 days out. It shows 10 now because some of the time has expired, but when I entered the trade, it was 14 days out. So I went at the 242.50. I was able to sell it for $1.40, and this morning I closed it at 70 cents. So I got a pretty good return right there, and you can see that the stock was moving up, which enabled me to close this trade. The VIX actually went up some, which usually hurts these trades, but I was still able to get out of it. I got the run into earnings that I was expecting. I'll bring up the trade sheet for you. Let's take a look at it. You can see I entered it on 722. As far as what I use for my risk, I use how much buy, a little bit more than the buying power that it shows when I enter the trade. So I'm showing it affected my buying power by about $8,000. Some people may use the actual value of the stock and how many contracts they sold, but I usually focus on buying power. And this can go up after the trade is entered, especially if it moves against you. When I entered it, it was at 267.59. Went up to 275.10 today when I closed it. I had 2 contracts after commissions, made $137, which is 1.71% on the overall risk that I took, which isn't great. But the annualized, because it was only 4 days, was 156%. It can mark that I had earnings here so that as I look at my trade sheets that I would keep up with that. And I also put here what my initial close order was at. I'd put in a good to close order at about 30% of the $1.40. So I was trying to close it around 42 to 45 cents if that hit. I took an early win just because the Fed's going to be meeting tomorrow and I'm expecting a lot of volatility. I had a good return with earnings coming up, and I was able to get out of it, which, again, you can see I documented all that right here. If you want to know more about my trades, please subscribe to the channel. Please like this video. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be glad to answer them for you, and I will see you next time.